back here from the Richard Schwartz and Associates Studios and the Magnolia Fields Maroon and White edition. Cody, let's do it. Let's just dive straight in because you and I have very differing opinions on this whole topic. Came in today, and I texted Parker, our lovely producer, before we got in today, and I said, we have got to talk about this UNLV Matthew Sluka situation. It's a developing story, and for the listeners, we're recording this at 12:51 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday. This is very much a developing
September
story.
25th, just so we have all of that ironed out.
September the 25th. This is very much still a developing story, but it's got eyes on it from across the college football landscape. Matthew Sluka, quarterback at UNLV, a 4-year player for Holy Cross, I believe, played 4 years there, led them to a lot of good wins. Holy Cross, for those that are unfamiliar with the Division II kind of football landscape, Division II powerhouse, okay? Sluka comes in, and he's guided UNLV to one of the best starts in the program's recent history. They're right on the cusp of being a top 25 team. I think they were actually, by the voting count, 26th in the most recent AP poll that got released on Monday. Matthew Sluka has announced he will forego the rest of the season and not suit up again for UNLV. He's going to redshirt and play his final year of eligibility elsewhere because UNLV has not followed through on the verbally offered $100,000 that he was promised in NIL money.
It's a tough situation.
It's tough. I mean, and no matter how you look at it, and there's so many different reports about it. I've seen some 24/7 guys that are apparently in deep with the university talking about this. We've got, right now, we're looking at an article from Pete Thamel and Rittenberg over at ESPN who are talking about this.
If there is however many sports news outlets there is an article about this.
There is. Action Network's got something on it. I mean, it is insane. Bar none.
It's crazy. It's a bad situation is what it is.
It is. And essentially what it sounds like has happened, and this is the information we've got at 12:52 p.m. on September 25th. Sluka was verbally offered $100,000 to come and play at UNLV. He has only received $3,000 up to this point, and he's about to burn his red shirt if he suits up in another game. So he's sitting out the rest of the season.
I hate to see it.
You do. And I think this goes into a much broader conversation, and this is kind of tying back to our wonderful producer. He asked me, well, how do we relate this to Mississippi State and Ole Miss? And I answered, this relates to all of college sports, period. I mean, no doubt about it, because NIL is here to stay. You and I both know this. There's no getting rid of it now. You've opened Pandora's box. But at the same time, have you done it in the right way?
And you're right. NIL is here to stay. I don't think, give it a couple of years, it's still going to be a big deal. I don't think it's going to be nearly as big as it is now, though, because of the lawsuit going on with universities being able to pay student athletes. When that does become legal and that becomes possible, I think you're still going to see NIL deals, but it'll only be for the top % of college student athletes that are making multi-million-dollar deals with Nike, etc.
I don't know. I mean, and I think you'll still see some,
you might see some local stuff.
I was going to say, I think you'll see some local stuff. I think you'll see some small brands.
I don't think it will be as heavy as it is now because it's the only way they make income. If they're being paid from a university, I think it changes the landscape just a hair.
That's fair. You're of the opinion NIL that Pandora's box probably never should have been open.
Just because of, I mean, you and I both grew up with it. You're student athlete. Student comes first. Student athlete. You are a student before you are an athlete. Money should not have gotten involved. And if we're going to be real, money has really always been involved because your tuition's paid for. I mean, all of the, you're treated like a god when you're a student athlete.
Except for in your wallet. Except for in your wallet.
But you get everything paid for. Kids on scholarship at colleges that are just students didn't have any of the...
But they're also not making multiple millions of dollars for these universities. And I don't mean just one or two.
And sometimes I think you're wrong there, because you look at kids that do projects with engineering and stuff that the university goes and takes as their own and stuff. That's millions of dollars and whatever it may be.
But it doesn't go towards the actual university. It goes to the research and the research budgets. It does not go towards building a new football facility or putting butts in seats every Saturday.
The student's not seeing any of it, which is the same concept as to what college athletes are doing.
But the money's going to different places.
The point is, whether the student is receiving money or not, you making money for a university. Both situations, they were making money for the university and not seeing a penny.
But that money's coming from federal grants. It's not coming from everyday Americans who are spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to go watch these kids play, and the university is profiting. Or before now, the university was profiting all of that.
Well, then how do you say it for private colleges? It's the same thing. Kids weren't seeing a penny of it.
No, and they should. I'm not saying I'm not saying they shouldn't have been, but now even their athletes are getting NIL deals. Thankfully,
they are. But the whole situation is just a mess because of how NIL is. If you would have kept it the way it is, people would have gotten mad, and it would have been what it is, and people still would have played. It's that simple.
I think that NIL was coming. It has always needed to come.
I think we all knew it was coming.
I think it was rushed. I think that NIL was legalized, and again, it was just the Wild West. We pushed this forward as a college sports community without any kind of regulation at the federal level, and that was a mistake. That was a huge mistake, because now, how do you put the cat back in the bag?
The other issue is, and you probably have an idea of how it's phrased, but Tanner, how does the NCAA define college sports?
Oh, there are 50 different, depending on who you ask. But
by the handbook of the NCAA, college athletics are essentially for like intermediate people. There's a specific word that's blanking my mind, but it's a word that separates it from professionally and being paid and all of that stuff for your services.
And that was written before billions, and I do mean billions with a B, came into the equation.
It was updated like 2 years ago.
And it was written before billions with a B came into the equation.
The update, nonetheless, the point being is, though, the concept of college sports is not supposed to be about this money and all of this stuff. When you become a professional, make your money, make your glory, have fun with it then. You're still a student athlete. It makes no sense, because 98% of these student athletes are not going to go play professional sports. They need to be focusing on the school and not playing for years.
But if they're going to make money for the school, which is what they're doing by suiting up, right? We all know that, especially in football. Then what other option like you said, yeah, they're not going to go play professional sports. But you're saying the professionals, yeah, you make some money then, but you get paid down the road. You get your money later. Most don't. Most make millions for their institutions and then don't. That's the problem. The problem was never, Nico vowel sound not making any kind of money and players like that. Yeah, that was never the problem. The top 2% was never the concern. The problem was the 98% that aren't going to go play in the league, that just made this university millions and millions and millions of dollars. And really, this company is, when you go back to EA Sports and how this conversation restarted, millions and millions and millions of dollars with their name, image, and likeness without ever being compensated for it. That was the problem.
But they are being compensated. They're getting free education.
Not from EA Sports, they weren't.
Not from EA Sports, they weren't, but that's a different scenario in its own. And if we're being, there's a fine line, especially with EA Sports, but they might have used what they looked like, but their names were never involved.
They used to be. Go back and look.
Years and years ago.
And that's good.
And they changed that for a reason.
But they still use their image and likeness.
to an extent, and you could really make an argument that they did.
No, you couldn't.
You could.
No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't.
Definitely could.
Go play NCAA 14 and tell me who that running back
And
is.
you know who it is, yes, but there you can make an argument that it's not.
No, you couldn't. You couldn't. It would be.
There is no name.
You're grabbing at straws. And that's why it's not just name, space, image, space, likeness, space. It's all together. It's the name, image, and the likeness.
I mean,
They're using the image and likeness. They always were. They always were. Because that's how they sold games.
Take away that, though, you're being compensated by the university. A free education is compensation, whether you believe it or not.
Not near enough.
I'm not saying it's equal to what they do or not. It is compensation.
And it's not near enough. That's about all the time we've got for this segment. We'll go ahead and move on after this break. Talk about the Mississippi State quarterback room. A fun one. Hang on. We'll be right back after these messages.